Today I want to talk to you about creating value-added foods in Arkansas. We're going to talk about food systems, food processing, cottage food products, commercial food regulations, and creating food products. So what are food systems? So food system basically encompasses everything from growing the food, the production of that food or the produce, to processing it, distributing it, sales, marketing, purchasing, prepping the food at home, consuming the food, and then disposing of the waste. And what is interesting about food is it does connect us all. No matter where we are globally, food is something we all have in common. And there's been a drive in the last decade or so on local foods. So what is local foods? So people prefer to eat foods grown or farmed close to places of sale and preparation. And this supports our local economy. People like to know where their food comes from in terms of the transparency, knowing that it came from a local farm and that you're supporting that local economy is important to consumers. And what is food processing? So food processing is taking a raw ingredient and converting it into another form. And this can be a way of combining raw food ingredients to produce marketable food products that can be easily prepared and served by a consumer. And it also creates value-added potential. Examples of some simple value-added products would be if you took a head of lettuce and you, in a food processing or food manufacturing facility, chopped up that lettuce and then rebagged it and sold it as chopped lettuce. That is a value for the consumer because it's easier for the consumer to use. They don't have to cut up their own lettuce. So that's an example of a simple value-added food product. So what is the impact that value-added food production has on the economy? So foods transform from the original form to enhance a consumer appeal or other aspects of the product, as in the example I just gave. But this can also diversify your business. It can maintain a food supply throughout the year, and it can create easy to store and distribute products for commercial markets. So an example of that would be if you were a blueberry farmer and you had excess blueberries that did not sell, you could in a food processing or food manufacturing facility, you could store the frozen blueberries and make a jam, jar the jam up, and then you would have a product that you could sell in the off season. So what do we need to take into consideration in terms of food products that are sold to consumers? Some food products can be made at home and sold under Arkansas cottage food laws. But most food products need to be made in food manufacturing facilities if they're going to be sold commercially. Now today I'm only going to talk about what happens in Arkansas in terms of the Arkansas cottage food laws. So let's talk a little bit about that in case that's something you're interested in. So what is a cottage food production operation? So this exempts some foods from Arkansas Department of Health oversight. Now, the Department of Health oversees the safety of the citizens of Arkansas. And so one of those elements involves food as well. It also gives you the opportunity to sell some homemade goods without having to invest in a commercial kitchen or a food manufacturing facility. But it is basically a person who produces food items in the person's homes that are not potentially hazardous foods. So what does that mean in terms of potentially hazardous foods? So these are typically considered items that must be kept refrigerated or hot to remain safe, cannot be sold under cottage food law. So examples of those would be cheesecake, anything with a cream or cheese filled items or topped with cream or cheese, cream pies, meringue pies, custard pies, or any items containing any kind of meat. These are items that you would typically refrigerate or heat, so they are not allowed to be sold under cottage food law. Cottage food law varies by state. So when you are looking up, if you are interested in making a product in Arkansas and you want to look up cottage food laws, be sure you are looking up the laws for Arkansas because they do vary by state. So some things that are allowed in Arkansas are not allowed in other states and vice versa. So what are some of the cottage food products that are allowed in Arkansas? So we can make baked goods at homes. We can make cookies and some cakes and some pies at home as long as they have no cream, icings, or fillings. You can make candy. You can make caramels. You can make chocolate candy. You can make brittles. You can make fruit butters, jams, and jellies. Any kind of fruit like that. An exception here would be you're not allowed to make pepper jellies under cottage food laws, but you can make fruit, jams, and jellies and butters. A new item that has been added is chocolate covered fruit. So you can make chocolate covered fruit and sell it as a cottage food product, but it has to be whole, uncut fruit. So you cannot cut the fruit up, dip it in chocolate, and sell it. It can only be whole fruit. So you can take whole strawberries, rinse them off, dip them in the chocolate, and then sell them as a cottage food product. So other items that can be sold can be whole uncut fruits and vegetables, like you would at a farmer's market, maple syrup, sorghum, and honey, and then things that are commercially prepackaged but not hazardous foods. Examples of this would be maybe something you bought in bulk in a retail store, like packages of a cookie that are individually packaged for serving, so that you are buying a giant box of cookies and in each box is some individually wrapped cookies, and you sell those cookies individually, but they're wrapped and you're not handling them or opening them up in any way, shape, or form. But you also have restrictions on where you can sell these food items. So where can cottage food be sold? One of the examples is that you have to, if you have a product, it has to be sold from the manufacturer, that's you, to the customer or the consumer directly. So there cannot be a middle person. So you can't give it to a friend to sell for you at a store or at another location. You have to sell it directly to the customer. And this needs to be in a location where the site where the food is made. So if you are making this in your kitchen, you can have someone come to your home and purchase your cottage food items. You can also take your cottage food items to a farmer's market and sell them at a farmer's market. You can take them to a county fair and sell them at a county fair. You can also do some special events. And what is the definition of a special event? And in this case, it's more likely to be something like a festival that you have in your area, maybe a spring festival or a carnival that may happen in the town square. It would be an event that is sponsored more or less by a city. If you have questions about that, you can email the Department of Health about whether or not that event qualifies as a special event. And then you can also sell on online farmers markets. So if you have access to a farmers market that has an online version, that you can accept sales there. One thing you cannot do from your home is accept online payments for food from your home or from your own business from home, and then ship product to customers. They can place orders with you online, but they must pick them up in person or at any of the locations that are listed here. And then also you can have a pop-up shop within another established business. And so what that means is that if you have let's say a local store, a grocery store, and you are allowed to set up a temporary display that features your product, and you can sell your product there from the pop-up shop, but you are typically, the rule still applies. You are the manufacturer, you're there, and you're going to sell that product to the customer directly, even in that pop-up shop. And then you also have to label the products for cottage foods very clearly. So some of the elements that need to be on the label is that you, first of all, are not allowed to make nutritional claims on the product. So no nutritional claims are allowed. So you can't say, you know, this product is very healthy or anything like that. But there are mandatory items. So some of the mandatory items is the font size. It must be a 10-point font size. You need to have the name and address of the manufacturer, that's you, the name of the product, the ingredients of the product, and somewhere on the label of the product, it needs to say this product is home produced. And you can see in the example here on the slide, we have a grape jelly. It's got some ingredients here. It's got grape juice, sugar, citric acid, and pectin. It says this product is home produced, and it has the name and address of the company that made this jelly. And you can also have this product is home produced written in also maybe a blurb that you have on there. Maybe you have a little information about, you know, what your home business is, and you could say in there that you have produced this product at home there. So now that I've talked about cottage food law and what you can do from your home kitchens, let's talk about commercial food regulations. So we are going to make food and we are going to sell it commercially to commercial markets. Products that must be produced in manufacturing facilities in Arkansas are acidified foods. So pickles is a good example. Pickled green beans, pickled cucumbers, pickled okra, all these acidified items that you're placing in a vinegar need to be made in a food manufacturing facility. Other canned foods, salsa is an example, sauces and green beans, any smoked, cured, or dried meat, sprouted seeds or beans, and any processed fruit or vegetables. And as an example earlier, if you were going to take lettuce and slice it up and sell it in bags, then you would need to make it you would need to do that cutting and operation in a food manufacturing facility. So who regulates food production? So there's really 3 regulatory agents levels here. The United States Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, regulates most food and beverages except meat and poultry, which falls under the United States Department of Agriculture, or the USDA. And then on the state level, we have the Arkansas Department of Health, and they regulate food safety in the state. And their goal is to ensure the food sold is wholesome and represented honestly. And so in terms of a state level, the ADH has regulation responsibilities for our food safety in Arkansas. All right, so what are some examples of food manufacturing facilities in Arkansas? These are facilities inspected and approved by the Arkansas Department of Health. We have the Our Kitchen in Little Rock, the Arkansas Food Innovation Center in Fayetteville, Delta Cuisine in West Memphis, and some new locations in Arkansas include these share ground facilities. So these share ground facilities are certified kitchen and distribution centers located in Marshall, McCrory, and Rison. Since this is new, I'm going to talk a little bit about it. So these are the locations. This certified kitchen and distribution center located in these 3 cities are a project that we have where we are creating facilities at fairground sites. And these are the locations of the facilities that for the share grounds. And so we have some over here in this area and these around these counties. But what's interesting about all of these is that there's a very good population zone around each of these smaller places. So what we're trying to do with all our facilities in Arkansas is have access for people in many different parts of the state. And we found here at the University of Arkansas System Division of Agriculture that at our Arkansas Food Innovation Center that people will tend to come within an hour's drive of a particular facility. So what do you have to do to create a food product? So first of all, you are creating a food entrepreneurship. So you need to have the knowledge necessary to develop a food product, restaurant, foodtail, retail business, and other miscellaneous food-related endeavors from initial idea to early growth. So you need to realize that as you are starting your business, you are becoming a food entrepreneur. And then in order to create those products, some of the considerations are, are you a grower or an entrepreneur that want to add value or diversify a business operation? And do you have this idea or concept for a food product that you want to move forward? And also, do you have investment capital from, around $500 to $1,000 to kick this off? So you do have to have some funds to start because there are some fees and products that you're going to have to buy or produce that you may have to buy to develop your product. And also, do you have the time? Do you have the time in your business for this endeavor? And those are some of the big questions you need to ask yourself if you want to get into food entrepreneurship. And these are some of the steps that you have when you're doing a value-added operation for food production. So, let's say we're starting at the farm level. We're going to collect the produce. And in this example, we're actually talking about going from farm surplus to a finished product and what it would take to do a value-added food production. So we're going from the farm, taking the produce or the excess produce or the surplus produce or the unused produce to a food processing facility. We may wash the produce, we may chop the produce, and depending on what the produce is, we can go different routes. If we're going to dry this produce, let's say it's mushrooms, we may just dry the produce and put it in containers to save it until we're ready to make a product. Or we can do something where we slice and trim, let's say tomatoes, and we're going to weigh them and freeze them, and we're going to save all those produce until it's enough that we can make something. And then we're going to continue on down the line following the flow chart here until we have a finished product. And another example of a route you can do is if you have a concept for a food product, you can, let's say I want to make grandma's salsa. You know, I already know what the recipe is, so I'm going to get the produce I need. I'm going to either get it from a farm, or I'm going to get it from a broker or a distributor. I'm going to order the produce, and I'm going to make this produce. And you still follow a lot of the steps that are on this flow chart. So you still have some things that you need to do where you have to obtain a permit from the Department of Health. You have to get a sales permit. You need to make sure the product is safe. You may need a food process authority to review your process documents. And then you would have to go through a little bit of paperwork. And so one of the key things about using and finding a facility is finding a facility that can also help you with some of the later steps in this process. So some of the skills that you need for food entrepreneurship is a passion. So you need a passion for your product or your business, because you are setting up a business for this product. You are, you know, let's say I'm making a jelly, and it's a jelly for My Farm Jelly. And so maybe you have a company called My Farm's Products or whatever, and you are creating a business centered around that product in case you want to have other products associated with the business. So but you need to have a passion. You need to be able to sell your own and market your own product and have enthusiasm for your product. In terms of the clients that we've worked with at the Arkansas Food Innovation Center, some of the things that I see that where we have successful clients are the ability to follow directions. When you work in any food manufacturing facility, there's going to be paperwork, there's going to be directions that you have to follow to set up a piece of equipment or to clean a piece of equipment, so you need to be able to follow directions. You need to be fairly organized, and in that way, you have to be able to do a lot of paperwork and record keeping. And this will be every time you do a production run, not just at the beginning of setting up your business or your food production. So when you have a recipe, you have a small scale recipe, you're going to have to get that small scale up to a big scale or a large scale up. And then you're going to have to get it to where you're making it continuously. And when you get to that part where you're making the product continuously, every single time that you're making a product, you're going to be filling out paperwork about what ingredients you're using, how did you clean your equipment, how did you package everything, what are the codes on the produce or ingredients that you're using. So there's a lot of record keeping involved in food entrepreneurship. You need to have good work ethics. I always put on here, love to clean, because it seems like if you're processing food for an hour, you clean at the beginning for an hour and at the end for an hour. And if you're processing for 5 hours, it's about the same. So you're always cleaning before and after your food production operations. So, and in terms of the good work ethics, you want to be consistent. You may at this point have suppliers that are waiting for your product. And if you've booked a food manufacturing facility, you want to make sure that you are showing up on time and that you are working with the manufacturing facilities in that way. And sometimes you will also have employees that may work for you. So it'll set up a good standard for, you know, what you expect them to do for you if you have employees that are helping you in the food production. And then sometimes you do need a little bit of knowledge about food science and math. And this helps along the way from understanding what the food ingredients are in your product and how they relate to each other. There's a lot of science involved in that. And then when you scale up your recipe, there's a little bit of math involved as well, and like doing formulas and calculations and percentages and scaling up to that larger batches and calculating the number of the jars you may need to order. What do you need to take into consideration for concepts for your food product? Well, if you're going to go to a food manufacturing facility and you are an entrepreneur or a grower that already has a concept or a recipe, then have you finalized it at home? So it's best if you go in and say, I have this recipe and I want to make it, rather than coming into a food manufacturing facility and saying, I have lots of ideas, but I'm not sure what I want to do. So be focused in what you want to do for your food product if you're going to go and process it. But you also have to have an open mind. When we are taking a recipe from a small scale to a large scale and to make it a safe product, sometimes that product has to change when we produce it commercially. So will the product change when produced commercially? Most likely, yes. Will it be drastic change? It's hard to say until we know what the product is. The more ingredients you have, the more complicated the product is, the more relationship of the science you have between the products, and the more complicated the scale up is going to be. What we want to do is make sure that we are making a product that is safe for the consumer. And when we sell it commercially, that it continues to be safe as it is on the commercial shelves. So I want to thank you for taking the time today to watch this webinar, and let me know if you have any questions.